Welcome back to Wisdom Unveiled. This is our 20th deep dive in this series of 40.
That's right. And today, we're really focusing in.
Yeah, we're zooming in exclusively on the poetry and philosophy of Hafez Shirazi. We're drawing from those fantastic conversations between Dr. Dinani and Dr. Larijani in the Maarefat audio series.
Specifically, we listened to the file 13014 Mordad 1390.mp3. Lots of rich material there.
Absolutely. And just a quick heads up before we dive in. This is based on translations of those original discussions, and sometimes, nuances get a bit tricky across languages.
So we apologize if anything doesn't sound quite perfectly conveyed. We're doing our best to capture the essence.
Definitely. So we heard from quite a few of you, actually. Emails came in asking about a specific ghazal, especially with Ramadan being on people's minds.
Yes, that connection was really interesting, so we thought, let's tackle the first two lines of that ghazal today. It's a perfect starting point.
Exactly. So for everyone listening, here are those opening lines in Persian. Yeah,
Beautifully read. And our mission today, really, is to try and unpack the layers packed into just those two lines.
Yeah, see what insights we can pull out that might resonate, with personal growth and just deeper understanding.
Okay, so that first line,
the month of Ramadan arrived, wine and tavern were shut down. Pleasure, joy, and wine fell to the time of dawn.
Straight away, you get that context of Ramadan. The wine and tavern were shut down. It's a very direct image of the outward changes.
Right, the cessation of certain, let's say, public indulgences. It marks a shift in the social rhythm.
Exactly. And then the second part, pleasure, joy, and wine fell to the time of dawn. What do you make of that? It's not just gone, it's moved.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's like those things aren't totally negated, but maybe transformed or rescheduled to dawn, a time usually for prayer, for quiet reflection.
It suggests a shift, perhaps, from external, maybe louder pleasures to something more internal, more contemplative, happening in those quiet hours.
It makes you think, doesn't it? For anyone listening, have you ever felt that kind of intentional shift? Setting aside usual routines for a period of, deeper focus.
But that's a great connection. It speaks to those universal moments of reflection we all experience.
Okay, let's move to that second line. This one feels packed. It's like, get you find you, I guess, I lived in the way show and you so she know.
Years I followed the religion of the Renden, until, by the decree of wisdom, I imprisoned greed. Wow. Okay, first half, following the religion of the Renden.
Rendan, that word jumps out. What can you tell us about who or what the Rendin are? Sounds mysterious.
Well, Dr. Dinani really emphasizes this Rend is incredibly difficult to translate. Like finding a one-to-one equivalent in English or French or Arabic. Almost impossible.
So no simple definition?
Not really. Even within Persian itself, it's nuanced. Its meaning really depends on how Hafez uses it. But interestingly, Dr. Dinani points out that Hafez gives us a clue right here in the second part of the line.
Ah, okay. So Hafez defines his own term in a way.
Exactly. And another point Dr. Dinani makes is that while the world has many religions, all Rendin apparently share just one mazhab.
One path, one creed. That suggests a very specific kind of shared understanding or practice.
Precisely. And that shared path is revealed in the second half of the line.
Which is, Eshq, until by the decree of wisdom I imprisoned greed.
Yes. So according to Hafez himself, this is what defines a Rend, this act. Imprisoning greed through the verdict or the decree of wisdom creed.
So a Rend is fundamentally someone who uses wisdom to control their greed.
That's the core of it. And Dr. Dinani stresses, a Rend is wise. Khird band. There's no Rend without this wisdom. It's not just something they do. It's who they are.
Is this Khird, this wisdom, just about being smart, like book learning?
No, and that's a key distinction Dr. Dinani makes. It's not just outward knowledge, Olme Zahiri. It's deeper, inner spiritual knowledge. Olme Baitan.
Inner wisdom, leading to controlling hers. Greed, that's a powerful idea. Why focus on greed specifically?
Well, Dr. Larijani talks about hers greed or avarice as a fundamental human trait. We all have it, right? Maybe for money, status, fame.
Even knowledge, I suppose.
Exactly. Right? And he notes that hers for knowledge, if it's about seeking truth, can actually be positive. But here, in this context, hers seems to stand for all those negative, excessive desires. vices, really.
So it's symbolic of more than just wanting stuff. It's that insatiable wanting that can lead us down the wrong path.
That's the idea. Dr. Larijani suggests that claiming to be completely without hers is probably, well, unrealistic. And when that worldly greed takes over, it can fuel negative actions, crime, transgression, hurting others.
Makes sense. Unchecked desire can be destructive. Now, Hafez says zindan kardan to imprison greed, not kashtan to kill it. Why that specific word?
Ah, you picked up on that too. Dr. Dinani highlights this as hugely significant. Imprison, not kill. It implies greed isn't something you can just, eradicate from human nature.
So it's always there, but it needs to be managed, controlled.
Exactly. It needs to be put under lock and key, metaphorically speaking. You can't eliminate desire itself, but you can control this kind of destructive desire so it doesn't rule you.
And how is this imprisonment achieved? Through the Fatwa Khird, the verdict or decree of wisdom. What gives wisdom this authority?
It's not just everyday intellect, according to Dr. Dinani. It's wisdom informed by that deeper spiritual understanding we mentioned, Olameh Batin. He uses this lovely image of seeking a fatwa from the Pir Khird, the elder of wisdom.
Like getting a ruling from your highest, most aware self.
Something like that. It's guidance from a higher level of consciousness. Khird itself is seen as maybe the result of the intellect, al-Kul, or perhaps a higher form of intellect or awareness altogether.
Okay, so how do we actually get this Fatwa Khird? How do we cultivate that inner wisdom?
Dr. Dinani suggests the path lies in following the mazhab Rendan, which basically means associating with, learning from, those who are genuinely knowledgeable, pure, spiritually aware.
Surrounding yourself with good influences, essentially.
Yes. An intellect that's kind of clouded or polluted by selfish desires might not be able to issue that clear fatwa. So connection with the wise and pure is crucial.
And being able to control hers this way, that's seen as a major achievement.
Absolutely. Dr. Larijani calls it a crucial step in human development. It's not about killing desire, but redirecting it away from the harmful, the negative.
But what happens if we fail? If greed isn't imprisoned by wisdom?
The warning is quite stark. Dr. Larijani says we risk losing our spiritual core, the Ganj Ravand, the soul's treasure to negative forces, symbolized by shaitan, or just overwhelming worldly desires.
Like selling something precious for cheap.
Exactly. He uses the analogy of selling Joseph for a pittance. Greed makes us undervalue our true worth. He even compares unchecked greed to hell's cry of, "How min mazid? Is there any more?" It's never satisfied.
So being a prisoner of greed means losing our connection to our higher self, our spirituality, our sense of the eternal.
Precisely. You become enslaved by fleeting material things, losing sight of your noble divine essence. It's a profound loss.
Wow, that's heavy. But is there a hopeful side? What if people could achieve this?
Well, Dr. Dinani suggests that if individuals could reach this stage, imprisoning negative desires through wisdom's decree, the world itself could be transformed. Less corruption, more harmony. It starts within.
That's a powerful link between inner work and outer reality. Now, you mentioned a listener connected this verse to fasting and Ramadan.
Yes, that was a really sharp insight. The listener pointed out that Hersby Zendan Kardan, imprisoning greed, sounds a lot like Habzi Nafsani.
The restraining of the self's desires.
Yeah.
Which is central to fasting.
Exactly. And both Dr. Dinani and Dr. Larijani thought that was a very fitting connection. Fasting is a kind of training in imprisoning hers, controlling those base desires.
A practical exercise in self-control.
Right. But, and this is important, Dr. Larijani adds, that the physical act needs Maarefat, spiritual knowledge or understanding, to be truly meaningful. It's not just about not eating.
So Ramadan becomes a training ground for both self-control and spiritual awareness.
That's the idea. And Dr. Dinani brings in that amazing saying from Imam Ali, the fasting of the mind from wrong thoughts is superior to the fasting of the stomach from food.
Wow. So it's not just about physical actions, but controlling our thoughts too. Those andasha, inasavab, negative thoughts.
Yes. Just like we avoid harmful food, we should avoid harmful thoughts. And what controls both actions and thoughts?
The intellects, aqwa.
Exactly. Dr. Dinani points to the intellect, aql, as the faculty responsible for this control. Even logic itself is a product of the intellect.
But isn't intellect sometimes seen as arrogant? Especially in spiritual circles. How does that square with Hafez emphasizing the Fatwa Khird?
That's a common misconception Dr. Dinani tackles head-on. He argues that true intellect is actually humble.
Humble? How so?
Because it's aware of its own limits. It understands what it knows and what it doesn't know. That self-awareness, he says, leads to humility, not arrogance. The intellect is capable of self-control.
So the idea that Hafez is somehow against intellect is wrong. This verse seems to prove it.
Precisely. The Fatwa Khird is central here. And even when Hafez talks about love, which he does so often and so beautifully, it doesn't mean he dismisses intellect.
Ah, okay. How do love and intellect fit together for Hafez, then?
Dr. Dinani suggests they're not in opposition. He mentions phrases like Daftar Iyakul ayat Eshq, the book of intellect is the verse of love.
So the intellect contains or expresses love.
And also, Akla Noti Pargari Vojud. The wise intellectuals are the center point of the compass of existence. It shows intellect's foundational role.
So love might bring wonder, maybe even confusion, but intellect provides the framework, the understanding.
That seems to be the idea. They work in harmony. But, importantly, when it comes to imprisoning greed, that negative hers, Hafez specifically attributes that power to the Fatwa Khird, the decree of wisdom or intellect.
Not love in this specific instance.
Not in this specific act of controlling negative desire. Now, the hers, or longing for the divine beloved, that's a different category of desire altogether, obviously.
It's just amazing how much is layered into only 2 lines of poetry. Really makes you stop and think.
It truly does. The takeaway seems to be the profound importance of cultivating that inner wisdom, that Khird, to guide our desires. It's key for personal growth, and maybe even for a better world.
So for everyone listening, maybe take a moment to reflect on your own hers, those desires that might be pulling you off course.
Yeah, and think about how you can strengthen that Fatwa Khird, that inner voice of wisdom, to help navigate them, especially during times set aside for reflection.
It leaves us with a question, doesn't it? How can we, in our daily lives, actively cultivate this decree of wisdom?
What practical step can we take to listen more closely to that inner guidance inspired by Hafez, to manage our desires and, move towards a more meaningful way of being?
Definitely something to ponder. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into these powerful lines from Hafez.
It's been fascinating to explore this. We hope it sparked some thought for you too.
We really encourage you to keep exploring the depths of Hafez's wisdom. Until our next deep dive.
Farewell for now.